It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantha Drax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine indeed. Unlimited power. We have working internet to some extent. So we have got a show for you tonight with loads and loads of Star Wars news to discuss. What have we got? We'll be checking out Star Wars Outlaws world premiere trailer as well as the official gameplay walkthrough that they released this past week. Sad news in that Treat Williams passed away. An extra in Emperor Strikes Back, but more known as a Hollywood star and friend of Carrie Fisher. We got the major news that there's going to be some Star Wars films coming out in 2026, 2 in fact, and a further one in 2027. Presumed to be the 3 films recently announced at Star Wars Celebration, but we don't know that for certain. But we'll be discussing, is it wise for Star Wars to be going back to 2 films a year release after what happened with The Last Jedi and Solo? Andor, the price of quality. We've been some discussion this week from Mr. Gilroy as to Andor landing at the right time in history to get the right investment into the show. We'll be discussing that. Hasbro have been previewing some upcoming releases in their Mission Fleet and NERF range, and Wonderwell, the final big screen performance from Carrie Fisher, is finally getting a release 7 years on. To discuss this and much, much more from FanthaTracks.com, Mr. Paul Naylor.
Good evening, Bri.
How are you, Paul?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. We were due to do this last week, but it didn't happen. So, yay, we're here at last.
We're fighting against the powers that be. I made fun
Rage
a couple of weeks.
against the machine, yeah?
It is. I made fun of Mr. Newbold and his troubles with Virgin Media on the last show that he heard. Then the following week, BT let me down, so it was my own fault, I think, there. But I have a degree of working internet enough to get us live stream out, so we're going live tonight, and hopefully it stays up. But if we disappear from here, you'll know what's happened.
Fingers crossed, everyone. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Do we get straight into the news? And
let's go.
Let's check out first of all the trailer from Star Wars Outlaws, which was announced and released this past week. We know there'd been an open world game coming from Ubisoft, and we got our first chance to see that with the premiere trailer. Obviously, a lot of this was cutscenes previewing what we're going to be seeing, but we also got a gameplay trailer as well, which we'll be checking out in a second. Star Wars gaming has improved over the past few years with Jedi Survivor and the likes. It's been something that's been much criticised since Disney takeover and the shutdown of LucasArts. But it looks like we're finally getting some really high-level quality content.
This does look really, really nice. The fact that it's open world as well. I think it was one of the creators was saying in an interview that you could be doing one part of the game, and a ship flies overhead, crashes not far from where you are, and you can go off and decide to do a side quest, should you so wish, and go and find out what's happening at the crash site. So, you know, it's going to be so immersive. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's gritty. It's got that look that we were promised with. Was it 1313?
Yes,
the Bounty Hunters game. It's got that kind of feel to it. But yeah, it just looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, even the lighting there, it's cinematic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's something, I think an open world game, something that everyone's been crying out for a long time as well. There's John Knoll right there from ILM.
Yeah.
In the chair. I think an open world game is something that people have been crying out for. We've seen it become hugely popular. I know I'm addicted to Elder Scrolls, and Skyrim was the last release of that, and I'm still playing that. What is it, 11, 12 years on from when it was released.
That worries me, Brian. Am I going to be doing this in my mid-60s?
It could be. It's got so much potential, an open world game. I'm not entirely convinced from what I've heard about this one that it is as open world as the likes of Skyrim is. I think there's some push towards following a storyline through it, but I think that's becoming sort of more commonplace. We can check out, bring this into focus, we can check out some of the gameplay and the gameplay trailer as well, if this plays, hopefully. Here we go. It's coming. Yeah, so I think there is some restrictions as to how open world it is, which isn't necessarily unexpected. I think Star Wars are always going to have a core story to it, and they're going to try and push you along in a certain direction. But I think you'll be able to go and do your own thing, and eventually you'll be brought back into the story, and at some point down the line is how I feel it's going to be.
It'll be almost like having an Infinities kind of comic book where it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to end up at the same destination anyway.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair.
Yeah. But no, it looks really good.
We've been seeing it as well. The likes of Harry Potter has its own open world release. It's kind of released this year, and regardless of the controversy around that franchise, people are kind of warmly accepting that kind of game as being of a good quality, and I think people are kind of hoping that from the same here, and that, with a company like Ubisoft behind it as well, who are renowned for the quality of their games as well. I think that's a positive.
They've been around forever, haven't they? So they've got a reputation to uphold. But yeah, the one thing that I really do think that this game would benefit from, and even the ones with Cal Kestis, the whatever that's
Jedi Survivor. Yep.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor. Yeah. I really do think it would benefit from being able to choose your character. There might be, there may be a selection of say 4 or 5 different characters. You could play as, I don't know, you could play as a Bith, you could play as a Wookiee, whatever, rather than just give you one character that you've got to stick with. That would be my one criticism.
Yeah, and I kind of think that's when I talk about Skyrim, when you start off Skyrim, you've kind of got to pick initially or design your character, pick that character's kind of background, and that basically installs in you the initial part of the storyline that gets you going, and then you can branch off and do your own thing. But everything from that then feeds back to the fact that, okay, you're that character and he's got that kind of beliefs because he's from that sect, let's say. Don't seem to have this in this game. It's coming from one character's perspective and one character's narrative. So I think that'll disappoint people not being able to have that flexibility of playing the open world game from different angles. For example, they'd obviously, like in Skyrim, for example, you've got multiple factions, and here you could easily have had players a rebel, players an imperial as a very basic kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. Just give us a couple of simple options. I mean, it's so beautifully designed, and the playability looks like it's going to be really good. I think that would be a fairly easy thing to have accomplished.
Yeah.
In the extent of everything else, but yeah, just looking at that now, that looks completely amazing.
Yeah, and I think I think the fact that they're pushing you towards this one character comes back to the fact that they are going to push you on the story mode a little bit on it, I think. But yeah, I think that'll be one of the frustrations of people. I think when it comes to open world games, people are kind of used to creating their own content to go along with it. Certainly that's been, of the successful games, that's been part and parcel of it, where they've been being able to go and create their own characters, create their own outfits, create their own missions, share them with other people, and it makes it kind of a community kind of thing here. We're not so sure we're going to have that. I'm interested to see...
Timeline. Sorry, Brian, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm interested to see an online element to the game, finding out more about how they intend to sort of build a community around the game, because that's what's going to make it a success or failure, is the ability to link up with other people, I think.
Yeah, which would automatically would necessitate you having a number of different character choices for personalization.
Yeah.
What time frame is this set in? Was it between Star Wars and Empire, or Empire and Jedi?
Good question. I think it's Empire Jedi. I think it's that.
I think so, because in in the trailer there was Han in Carbonite and Jabba,
Yeah.
wasn't there? So I think it's perhaps between Empire and Jedi, which means we won't see Han Solo crop up, but I suppose we could see some of the other characters.
Yeah. Jack there suggests a cross between No Man's Sky and Galaxies, Star Wars Galaxies as well. I think everyone kind of remembers Star Wars Galaxy, which I guess was the first sort of major open world sort of Star Wars game.
Yeah. Was that the one that was on mobile phones?
You could do. I'm sure it was desktop as well, wasn't it?
Was it
Yeah. I could be entirely wrong. The names blend into one after a while, I think.
So
it's got its up points. It's got its points. It probably needs some clarification. It's due for release. Jack just confirming there. Yeah, Star Wars Galaxies was the online one. Yeah, so played it from the desktop.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of positives. Looks fantastic. We're going to be able to do a lot of things that people have wanted to do for years. Travel from planet to planet, and having your own adventures, do your own thing, discover elements of the Star Wars galaxy. Just go out there and explore, and it's due for release 2024 at some point. I'm going to predict it's going to be the later part of 2024. Because normally they give you spring, summer, autumn kind of window. When they don't, tends to mean, we're really pushing to get this out in 2024, so it's going to be the tail end of it, I think.
Give them the time to iron the bugs out. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's maybe one of the key considerations is at what juncture do you release a game now, because Jedi Survivor, by all accounts, a great game. I'm off to start playing it myself, which I haven't started as yet.
Same here.
I might actually stream it, my first attempt at the game, and that could be an adventure.
Good luck with that.
Criticised at launch because it wasn't polished and ready. A lot of people discovered bugs and so on, and I think people are less tolerant of that now, because I think it's definitely become something in the industry where they've been pushing releases for particular dates and releasing games that aren't quite ready on the basis that they know they can push out patches afterwards. And, it's a difficult
it's a bit of a dangerous. It is a dangerous game to play, that, because people, they want it out there. I mean, rather famously, the Star Wars Lego game, the last one, that was delayed by about a year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that took forever to eventually come out. But people can lose patience waiting for it to come out. But sometimes if you release it and there's so many bugs in it, well, you're going to put more people off than you would have helped anyway. So tricky one.
Jack there saying he'd pay to watch me stream Jedi Survivor. It's going to happen then. It's going to happen. I'm going to earn that money. And he's also confirming that there's still bugs in the game as well. He's waiting on a bug error to get fixed and patched so he can 100% complete the game. And I think that's the problem when especially in the modern systems where you can release these patches. It kind of incentivizes developer to just get the game out there, collect the revenue, and we'll fix it at a later date.
Yeah. But no, that is looking pretty amazing.
Yeah. Jimmy coming in with a comment here that we've seen some people complaining because you're not playing as a Jedi Force user. To me, that's a pity. Star Wars Bounty Hunter on the PS2 and GameCube was great, and you played as Jango Fett in that game. I think you're right. It's actually nice to see it from a different kind of character's perspective that isn't a Jedi. And I think it's just an evolution. I think you'll get more open world games, and I think they'll maybe learn from this and they'll realise, people want to play as bounty hunters, people want to play as pilots, people want to play as Jedi, and let's give them that choices.
The lightsabers and Jedi Knights will turn up in this. Absolutely, no question about it. That will happen at some point.
Yeah. Jack, here's a comment. I'd like to see my live reaction watching the Clone Wars or Rebels, any kind of Star Wars animation. You know what? We should do a watch along series with Star Wars animation with me. Maybe whilst Ahsoka's coming out, because I know nothing about that character. Other than the fact that every year I share the same Facebook message where I said, I'm never going to catch on.
And how right you were. Mm.
Yeah. Still, we talk about Ahsoka because there isn't any actually Ahsoka news in the show tonight, so we'll talk about it now. But it is going to be the thing that confuses people most is the understanding that Anakin Skywalker had a Padawan, and that's
Yeah.
going to throw a lot of people because it's like anything. People all love Star Wars comics or books or animation or whatever. People have to remember that only a tiny percentage of the fan base will consume that media.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
only a
There is
tiny
a very
percentage of people watching the Ahsoka TV show
yeah.
will have seen the animation show, and it's great because it might turn them that way and make them watch the animation show. But in the same fact, people are going to be really puzzled because they're going to have seen the movies and they're going, "But Anakin didn't have a Padawan."
She
So
kind of had she kind of had a second introduction with the Mandalorian, didn't she? So
yeah,
she's going to mean something to people from that point of view. But yeah,
yeah,
you're right. I mean, even if they're only Mandalorian viewers and Ahsoka's come into it, unless they took the time to read the backstory, they are going to be surprised to find the link. Definitely, yeah. And the significance of all the Rebels crew as well. Yeah, from the Ghost. You know, the fact that you've got practically all of the crew is going to also be in Ahsoka. Um, you know, that's not that's going to go over the head of a lot of people.
yeah,
But for the fans of animation, such as yourself, Bry, it'll mean a big thing. You know.
yeah. That's the balance you've got to kind of strike is explain it to the people that don't know, whilst
Yeah.
not dumbing it down for the people that have been hugely
Exactly.
invested in the character,
Yeah.
and it's a difficult one to
It
do,
really is.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
all the more fascinating by the fact that you've got the creator of the character and the guy who ran all the animation actually leading the live action show, and it isn't just a case of someone else picking up the character. So
Yeah. I mean,
interesting
what
one.
they could have done, I doubt they would have gone to the expense of it all the time, but similar to what they did with the start of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, where you had the backstory of what was essentially the prequels, melted down into about 5-10 minutes, and then you went into the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. They could do that by putting like a potted history of Rebels at the start of the Ahsoka, but maybe a filmed version of it rather than using the animated style. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be quite cool.
Um, Going back to the game here, Jimmy's throwing out the idea. If he wonders if we'll get Han Solo, Boba Fett, or Hondo appear in the game since it's bounty hunter based, would be very cool if you could walk into a cantina and Han and Chewie sitting in the corner having a drink.
That would be
I'd love that.
excellent.
I don't know if I want them part of the main storyline, but I would love them just being there and existing there and it being part of the
Or
Star Wars galaxy.
you could go over there and pay for a ride on the Falcon with them to somewhere. That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, smuggle you in one of the halls. Um, Rule of Farm Boy over on YouTube. He's not got a PS5 or Xbox, so he's going to be following along through the cutscenes. I didn't have a PS5 until a month ago, and I've bought it so I can play Jedi Survivor. And the good thing is, bought it for £400, sold my PS4 for £200, so you're only really paying for half of it. Is my excuse. Although,
Okay, I'll have to go out and get some sort of kit to be able to do this. Definitely, definitely.
yeah, so watch out. We'll start doing some gaming on
That's it.
Fantatrax's channels, and you'll see just how bad I am at gaming and live as we try and learn the game live.
I'm
So
looking forward to playing FIFA. We'll play FIFA as well, Brian. That'll be good.
that'll play FIFA. I play generally, historically, when it comes to gaming, I play sports games more than anything. And
Yeah.
American football, basketball, ice hockey, all the sports that I don't know the rules to, makes it all that more difficult, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, I was the same on my Mega Drive, but that just goes to show how old I am. But there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Good question there. We hope we get the answer to how Ahsoka met Luke. We'd love to know how that conversation went. We'd love to see that scene as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Does Grogu fit into Ahsoka's past as well? Another one to throw out there. Lots that we could be discovering in the Ahsoka series. And
Yeah. That would be cool.
and obviously they've got to build up Thrawn as the big bad because Again, people know him from publications, comics, books, know him from animation, don't know him in live series, so we've got to build him up, and especially if we're going to be getting a movie off the back of it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Some sad news for the next news was the news that Treat Williams passed away this week, age of 71, after a motorcycle accident. Good friend to Carrie Fisher. Bit of debate as to whether he was an extra in The Empire Strikes Back or not. Some stories pitch it that he was just there and he mucked about and got in costume to take some photos with Carrie. Other people that were there on set say that he did jump into some scenes. But yeah, fascinating kind of story, purely on the history of Star Wars and the basis that you've got a guy who was top of his industry at the time and coming on set and even just getting into costumes, something fantastic. So tragic, passing away this past week, and has his name cemented in Star Wars lore, made it into the making of Empire Strikes Back book from J.C. Rizzler as well, or at least the photos didn't get the confirmation as to did he actually jump on set or not, or was he just behind the scenes with Carrie?
You know, I have to admit, I'd heard the name, but that's as much as I knew of Treat Williams. I didn't know any of the work he'd done. I had no idea of his links to The Empire Strikes Back. I suspect it was very much, let's stick a costume on and mess about. But you know, it's just, it's obviously a shame when anybody passes away, but the fact that there is that other link again to Carrie Fisher, and we're seeing some pictures that I've certainly not seen those pictures before. So it's always nice to see another behind the scenes shot of Carrie, and it just reminds us how much the franchise misses her, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so God bless you, Treat. Hope everything's okay and well with your family.
Yeah, indeed. The big news this past week was an announcement from Disney of their upcoming release calendar for movies, which they're releasing on a periodic basis, and everything kind of got moved around in the schedule, especially if you're a fan of the Avatar series. Once again, they've been delayed. I think it's now going to be 22 years between the first film and the fifth film before that's kind of franchise finishes now. And with the movement of some of the films, it opened up some December release windows. And we got a Star Wars film added to December 2026. And got one pushed back from December 25 to May the 22nd, 2026. So we're going to have two films in the space of 2026 calendar year, and just to complicate things matter, 3 films within 18 months, because we're also going to get a Star Wars film on December the 17th, 2027.
Yeah.
Have to say, Disney hasn't clarified the premise of any of these installments, but it kind of makes kind of reasonable sense, I think, that the theory being that the May 2025 one's going to be the Rey film, because that was the one that was originally scheduled for 2025. December 2026 most likely going to be the Dave Filoni one that everyone keeps calling Heir to the Empire, which was just a rumour, and I don't know why people keep saying it as if it's fact. And 2027 is probably going to be the Dawn of the Jedi kind of era and the creation of the Jedi.
Yeah, thousands of years ago. Yeah.
That kind of seems to
You know
be
what?
the working theory as to what these are, but we'll just have to wait and see. Rumours abound that the Rey film will go into production in the spring of next year. So, but I think what we have to remember on all of these, none of them have scripts.
No.
As we sit, so things change, and especially in the world of Star Wars film creation, things change dramatically very quickly.
I mean, the earliest we are to seeing anything then is 3 years away. So.
Yep.
You know,
May 26th is the.
It does seem a bit of a shame not to have something on or around the 50th anniversary of the original Star Wars.
It does.
that seems to be like something, that would have been an easy score, wouldn't it, for the saga? Maybe that's because then Celebration will be on, so they don't want to have the film kicking around.
Well, it's kind of interesting. We're going to have Celebration Japan in 2025. Now we're going to have 2 films to promote it. That celebration, really, if you think about it, you can have 2 films coming out within the next 18 months.
Yeah.
You may well have a celebration in 2026. If you do it in April 2026, you're going to be 1 month out from a Star Wars film. That would be something else, I think.
Yeah. Come to Celebration and get a free ticket to come and watch the premiere. Okay. That'd be pretty cool. But that does seem like
I don't know how you handle that if you're a month out from the film, because you're right in the middle of promoting the film, but you want to say a lot but can't say a lot. It's like one of that most difficult kind of controlled periods. It's probably not ideal.
Well, I mean, Celebration in Japan in 2025 is the next one. So is there a likelihood that there would be a celebration in 26 and 27?
I think quite reasonably, because they have done, or it's certainly intended to have consecutive yeared ones in the past, and COVID kind of snookered that a little.
I'd be very surprised if one of those wasn't Orlando.
Yeah, I think what you do is you go 2026 Orlando, 2027 California. It's easy for them.
Yeah. Oh well, better start saving.
But what's your thoughts on having 3 films within 18 months? And we're getting back to the Solo Last Jedi problem of people become tired of it. People become frustrated by it. They don't quite understand, if you're not a hardcore fan, what's going on. What's Solo? Just been to see The Last Jedi. Where's Rey and Finn?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly was that confusion amongst the sort of casual fan base. I don't think there was ever an issue with the volume of films coming out. It was just particularly that one film for me that completely derailed things, which was The Last Jedi. But hey, that's just my personal opinion. To me, they could release. I mean, Marvel releases so many different films a year, but that's going to be pulling back, isn't it?
Yeah.
While this is all happening, yeah. So that's probably because a lot of the infrastructure behind it, they can't afford to do that volume of Marvel and that volume of Star Wars at the same time. There's no reason why that shouldn't be interchangeable. There's no reason why we shouldn't have 3 or 4 Star Wars films from different sets of characters, different time zones being released each year. Whether that's confusing or not is irrelevant, but quality-wise, I think as long as the quality's there, and that there's a demand for it, then just release as many as you can. I'm not too sure whether or not maybe the 2 films that they've now got in the same year, the May and the December. What if one of the reasons that they're now doing that is that because the Rey Star Wars film set 15 years after The Rise of Skywalker, what if they got so much content they now want to make it into a 2-parter? So that's why they want to spread it over like a 6-month period. So say, right, you get this in May, then you get this in December, kind of thing.
Don't think they're that organised.
They don't think that laterally then.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I can understand it. I think it's more a Disney directive. I think they would want to do this. I think Disney must be frustrated at the lack of money that Lucasfilm's generating for them out of movies. I think since The Rise of Skywalker, not having a movie come out since then is kind of a bit of a scandal, if anything. If you're a Disney board member, you've got to be thinking, what are those people doing? Because what you have to remember is that Lucasfilm's got all the costs for making these TV shows, but all the revenues Disney Plus's. So you look at the accounts, look at the profit and loss, and you're looking at a lot of expense going out. Can you say that the subscribers are coming from Lucasfilm people?
So yeah,
watchers or not.
a man with your day job is going to
I know,
analyze it this way,
I know.
mate. Yeah,
So it's a lot easier. You look at it from a movie point of view, which is one of the hardest segments for Disney. Disney do very well in the parks. Disney Plus has been
yeah,
a complete financial failure so far. Can it course correct? I think probably it can and become profitable. But it's doing nothing like the heyday of when they were selling their content all over the world. So there's a big issue hanging over Disney Plus and how it is handled going forward. But when you look at the movie division of Disney, it's one of its smallest parts of its business. But when it is firing on all cylinders and you've got Marvel pumping out 4 films a year, it's one of the most profitable
yeah,
as well. So there's massive pressure, I think, on Lucasfilm to be contributing to the bottom line in that segment, because Lucasfilm was bought as a film-making franchise.
yeah.
And it's not delivering, hasn't delivered for quite a number of years now. And it's going to have to deliver going forward. And so I can see the pressure certainly coming from Disney. You need to up your performance here. We want you to be working to certain budgets, generating certain income. And I can see the pressure being there for them to go back to a 2-film year schedule. There's nothing to say there's not going to be a film come out in May 2028 unless there's another films within 6 months of each other.
Yeah.
And
But I am
you just have to look at what's going on just now. You've had Guardians of the Galaxy 3. What else have been out in cinema? You've got the one with the cars. I can't even remember what it's called. Fast and the Furious has been out. The Flash, which comes under DC, which also reminds you of the Little Mermaid as well. Under DC. That's terrible.
Oh, ouch.
But there's a lot of films coming out, and Disney have got their fingers in a lot of those pies in terms of Galaxies, Guardians of the Galaxy, in terms of Little Mermaid and so on. And so they're not scared to have films up against each other almost, or in the same kind of release windows.
Yeah.
So yes, they've been moving films about, but there's still, if you look at the schedule, there's still loads of Disney films and Marvel films surrounding those Star Wars releases. And you've got Avatar as well to factor in as well.
Yeah, there's a clash, isn't there, with one of those Star Wars releases released alongside a Marvel film, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think as long as it's handled correctly, that there's room for Disney Plus, sorry, rather Disney, to have TV shows and films being produced. Um, and for me, the more the merrier. Just make sure it's good quality. Disney Plus could essentially, if they really wanted to recoup their money, they could close down.
Yeah.
And what they would do is they would create the programs and sell them to other providers to actually put out there.
Yeah, Jack saying there I'm his favourite Little Mermaid. I was going to say that I'm not ginger, but that's not a criteria anymore. So, he suggested, Jack as well suggested 2 things there. Is there a backlog due to COVID, and how's the writer's strike going to affect this as well? Which is 2 great points. I don't think there is a backlog due to COVID. I think after the Rise of Skywalker, Lucasfilm just opted let's just focus on TV. We don't know what we're doing with films for a period. And in fairness to them, they've done well on the TV market, but it doesn't stop Disney being frustrated with wanting them to be firing on all cylinders in all areas. I think the Star Cruiser hotel as well, and that failing to some degree comes into it. If you're on the Disney board, you've got to be looking at Lucasfilm and thinking, really, you guys need to be contributing more to our profits and more to our turnover as well. So
bad choices, really. Bad choices were made, weren't they? I think.
Yeah,
and
it's not all on Lucasfilm. Some of the bad choices fall on Disney's shoulders as well.
Yeah, I think the Star Cruiser failed in 2 ways for me. Obviously, it was a little bit elitist in terms of how much it was costing people to go there. But also, to me, from what I saw, I was never jealous that I didn't get to go. It just didn't feel Star Warsy enough to me.
It just
It
looked
felt like
really cheesy to me.
generic sci-fi cheesy. Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
that if I go to a Star Wars theme thing, I don't want that cheesy Twilight singer.
No,
If it was more
no.
Ula, then I might be tempted, but but no, it just looked yeah.
Yeah, not for me.
In terms of the writer's strike, will it affect the films? I don't think so. You tend to find it, this is terrible to say, but you tend to find that, the writers are on strike, they're not supposed to be doing anything, but they'll go away and they'll do side projects. They'll go and write a novel, they'll go and do something else, so they're not working necessarily for a studio, but they get another project that's been on their diary out the way.
Yeah.
And so they come back refreshed and clear of mind. And, you may be on strike and you may be a writer. Doesn't stop things coming into your mind. And
Exactly.
if you come up with a good story idea or a good thing, you might just stick it in a book to raise at a meeting in 3 months' time when the strike's over. But it doesn't stop the mind working. So I don't think it tends to have more things. The bigger impact tends to be on your shorter form TV. So your comedy sketch shows that are more, time critical kind of thing, and they just fall off the air completely. And I reckon that I'll be sorted next month anyway. This is generally what happens. I'll be delayed long enough to the point that the studios say, right, we can't put all these shows into production for September. Time for the new TV schedule. That's a shame. We're going to have to kick it all back to next year, because in reality, the streamers are the streaming issues really behind a lot of the issues with the writers. And Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, they're all looking to save money at the moment. So what's the best way to save money is to not put new shows into production. And so if you really want to look at, if it goes into the middle of July, there's nothing going to go into production in time for September for the new TV series. It saves them a year of costs. They're all absolutely delighted because they've managed to save some money in the back door. And all these writers are demanding bigger wages. Not going to get paid for the next year because they're not going to be working on any shows. So there's kind of like a double-edged sword to it there. You can demand higher pay, but you're just not going to have any pay the next year.
So the two can balance out nicely.
It does, and it allows all these streamers to say, "Oh, I'm very sorry, but we're not going to have the same volume of new content," and it's not our fault; it's the writer's strike fault. So you'll find as soon as it gets to the point in July where it's going to stop them putting shows into production for September, that'll be resolved. And if you don't believe me, go back and have a look at the time schedule for when the last strike was resolved, and it was resolved mid-July. And, these things can be resolved in a week when all the sides want to resolve them, and the talks only happen when they want to resolve them, and at this point in time they don't want to resolve them because they want to save money. These people on strike, they're not paying them their wages. Everyone's delighted at this point in time.
You've been listening to Brian Cameron, Shop Steward.
Yeah, there you go. Jack also making the point there, so much content as well coming up. Andor Season 2, The Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, so much for next year. And to be fair, it's kind of probably not that content. That content's all probably quite safe in the can. The people that are on the strike just now, not necessarily hugely affecting that. It does to some degree because if they want to rewrite, make changes, then they do need writers involved. But they can push on with a lot of that. All that stuff will air. It's Andor safe because there's not a Season 3, but Acolyte Season 2, Skeleton Crew Season 2 becomes slightly more complicated and difficult because of the writer's strike. So it's not going to be the season that we haven't seen yet. It's going to be the season after that. And if you remember back to The Mandalorian, we kind of had this with Season 3, and there was all the rumours and going on in the background and fighting as to what's happening with Pedro Pascal, and is he leaving, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And there was a huge gap between Season 2, Season 3, and Book of Boba Fett kind of got slotted into place and became slightly complicated by that. You're going to have issues like that. So any kind of delay kind of spirals on, but you don't necessarily see the outcome for a year, 18 months. Going back to Star Cruiser as well, Jack also made a comment on that. 10 grand for a cocktail is a big feeling for me. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that annoys me as well.
It's
But
delicious.
talking of money and talking of Andor,
Yeah.
yeah, the next news story, Tony Gilroy talking about Andor and making the point that they got lucky because Andor was commissioned during the gold rush a few years ago. A lot of people now have cold feet, and you can't do that show inexpensively. I'm just so relieved at the reaction because we were making this huge obscure thing and we knew it was crazy. Like, is this too much? Have we gone too far? No focus groups or test audience. Now it would be good if we can stick the landing and go out strong. And this is on the backdrop of the budget for season 1 of Andor being 250 million or thereabout. Hugely impacted by COVID because they were filming it during the real difficulties and hardest points of COVID here in the UK, and especially the fact because we're on location a lot, so trying to keep the COVID rules and move around the UK and film on location and so on, very difficult. So the budget became huge for that, and as he points out, they were very lucky because they got the green light for it. Certainly wouldn't get the green light for it now to spend that kind of money on a TV show.
No. But I mean, the quality of it shows, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
the stuff that you see in Obi-Wan Kenobi and certain parts of Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, where they use the volume, once you've got used to the quality of the volume, you can still tell when stuff is being filmed indoors rather than outdoors on location, because there's limitations. In terms of the scope of Andor, the way it was filmed, the way that it was the narrative was driven, very book-like, and by that I mean they delved right down to the nitty-gritty of it. There was no sort of like you need to rush from one scene to the next. There were pauses, there were quiet moments, reflective stuff, and the quality of it benefited from it. The money thrown at it was for me, it was repaid to us as fans, certainly. I loved it. It's the thing that felt more film-like than anything else that we've had from Star Wars.
Putting my accountant hat back on, it's the problem is when you look at it
Here we go, kid.
is how many subscribers did it acquire for Disney Plus, or how many subscribers did it retain?
Yeah.
And that's a calculation. That's just a non-alcoholic drink there, I'm sure. That's a real question because I'm one of these people who subscribes and unsubscribes to Disney Plus as and when Star Wars content is on.
And there's a lot of people do that. There's a lot of people I know who do that.
So I'm the perfect example for when Andor season 2 comes on, I will subscribe to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And I will stop when Andor season 2 ends. And so if someone's watching the analytics as to what people are doing, they'll be able to track me, like what started when he joined, what stopped when he left. You can pretty much tie me to like Andor, for example, or a Star Wars product, whatever it is. Easy metric to measure. For the spend on Andor, did it attract 250 million plus worth of subscriptions?
Probably not.
It's a very hard measure, and this is the problem streaming services have with any kind of content. They can look at viewer numbers, but a program can attract a lot of views, but is it also the program that's attracting someone to the platform?
I think the other problem as well these days is that because there's such a turnover from one part of the franchise to the next, that in terms of merchandising, the window is very small. So any attached revenues to the show that could potentially go towards the revenue, it's very limited.
Yeah.
So that will also be a problem for them. So in some ways, releasing one film every 3 years, as we did back in the day, that gave you all that breathing space to do other bits and bobs throughout that 3-year gap to recoup your money.
Yeah.
And they'll never have that again, obviously.
And I think you kind of hit a point thing. Disney are going to have to assess, like, what's a Star Wars fan worth? To keep them, it's true. You've got to do that in terms of, like, how much is our TV budget for Star Wars in a year? And, if we stopped having Star Wars content, people are going to unsubscribe. How many subscribers would we lose? And that then becomes your cost base. And it's difficult to know that. And you look at things like getting rid of likes of Willow is a good example of them saving money in terms of residual payments and that. Yeah. You're going to see a lot more of this. You're going to see, I think, Disney Plus become a lot more focused back to its sort of original intention of it being Star Wars, Marvel, Disney, National Geographic, I think was the first four. Obviously now they've got Star from Fox. Now Star's a big theory. Should that all be part of Disney Plus, or should that be content that they're selling around the world to different TV channels? And I think that's where you're going to see the shift in focus in Disney Plus. I think you're going to see a lot more of the obscure content get pushed out to TV channels, and maybe it brought back to its kind of core focus. So smaller budgets for Star Wars, but so you're not necessarily going to get something made in the same way Andor's made, and you're probably going to get more made in the style of like the likes of Obi-Wan, where you're not traveling location-wise very much, and you're doing a lot in front of the screens.
I mean, if done properly, that can be quite cool, because you can have more intense sort of Tarantino-esque conversations between characters rather than having the actual special effects driving the story.
I think you have to. I think you nail it there, because it's Lucasfilm have to think about how they're writing the TV shows.
Yeah.
So you've got to write it in the mind of how we're going to make it.
You got to write to the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it might be that they get to splurge money once a year on a film, and then the rest of it they have to sort of tread water a bit on. But it's how much of that fans will take. If it becomes so cheap and so nasty, people will disengage anyway.
Yeah.
So you've got to be careful how you do it.
And you're always going to get comparisons to what other brands are doing. So what's Amazon doing with Lord of the Rings? What's HBO doing with Game of Thrones? Or House of the Dragon? You're always going to get that kind of comparisons. And I think that's the kind of danger level. Or Netflix, Stranger Things is going away, but you start looking at what other people are doing with their flagship shows and how they're getting made and the kind of budgets getting used. Mr. Newbuild chiming in there, spend all the money on Andor. And that could be well the kind of thing that happens. It could be, this year we're going to make, let's say, Skeleton Crew is going to be a very low budget show, and the core amount of our budget we're going to give to the people making Andor this year. That's a kind of evolving kind of behavior you're going to have to see from Lucasfilm in terms of their TV. It could be, not necessarily a show. They could, look, we want to do something really special in this season finale for The Mandalorian. Okay, you're going to get a bigger chunk of the budget to deliver on that. Yeah. But there needs to be cloth cut somewhere else.
I mean, Skeleton Crew could be another Willow in terms of how it's received.
Yeah.
Not saying
it's
going to be.
It's going to be hit and miss. I have to say I was quite impressed with the trailer and the footage at the show Celebration. Surprisingly so.
It was okay. I just don't know how much of these kids I can take. We'll see.
Yeah, there's always that element. But you know what? Yeah. They're all going to have to die because they didn't make it to the sequel trilogy.
So there's always an upside.
There's always an upside.
Yay!
Yay! On that note, let's look at some kids' toys. They can shoot them with Nerf guns. Obviously, not suggesting anything else. Mission Fleet and NERF releases incoming from Hasbro. And we can check these out. We've got Grogu's Training Adventure from the Book of Boba Fett, obviously. From little Grogu went to see Ahsoka and Luke. and highlight of that series, I think, for most people. Ironically,
Yeah,
Boba
yeah,
Fett nowhere
that
near.
episode was that episode was incredible. Yeah, yeah, the one where we saw the training, but yeah, I mean that was part of of the two episodes that were focused primarily on the Mandalorian rather than Boba Fett, and were arguably the better episodes. Um, yeah, Mission. Sorry, what are these? This is the Mission Fleet toy range. Mission Fleet toy range, which is pretty much taken over from what the Galactic Heroes were, which is what my
Yeah,
son collected as a kid. Um, I do love the aesthetic of these. I think they're really quirky. Um, it's a shame they haven't quite taken off the way that I think everybody thought they would.
yeah,
Um, but for me, I think that these again probably these are good for the casual collector. You know,
yeah. These are
let
the
the kids
packs that
they
you
can,
open. These are the packs that
yeah,
you open.
kids
Yeah.
can play with these. Let them have a go. Yeah, absolutely.
$23
So
coming out summer 2023.
that's not
Um,
bad. I mean, it's quite a bit there, isn't it? It's quite a few
yeah.
things.
And the Mandalorian blaster, Nerf gun blaster, also available
Yeah.
this summer from most major retailers. Not all of them, just most. And $20 should wear protective eyewear. How many people playing with Nerf guns wear protective eyewear?
Well,
Well,
you
you
know,
should. There's Fanta Tracks advise that you should.
I never
Safety
did.
first. Mr. Newbold in the comments there saying he's been recording and making tracks 168 out Wednesday this week. There we go. Let's promote it. Let's
Wait,
get
wait,
let's logo up on
don't
the screen there. There we go.
don't come on here promoting your shows, Newbold.
I know he's hijacking the show. Go to your podcaster of choice, type in Father Tracks Radio, you'll find Making Tracks and all the other shows, including Start Your Engines, Mr. Naylor, that you're on.
Oh, we're a little bit behind on this, Bri. We do apologise. I mean, what with getting married and having a honeymoon, I'm a little bit behind. I need to
It's
pop over to
priorities.
New. I know it's what an excuse. I need to pop over to Newbold Towers and get on this. And Mark, if you're up for it, I'll pop over one night this week and we'll sort that out.
Do you know what it's going to be? Can you tease us as to what the next show may be?
I believe, and Mark might correct me, but I think we're doing assorted vehicles from the Shadows of the Empire.
Oh,
Mm,
here we go.
yes. So there you go.
This could be a Schofield issue here. I've got plans for you, Naylor, he says.
Fair enough.
That'll be noted in time there. Real fanboy's got a spot in his pods playlist for Making Tracks. Here we go. Yep, Mr. Newbold has confirmed it's going to be Shadows Empire. Interesting.
Yeah. Excellent.
One
So
of
yes,
my
I'll pop over,
favourite
Mark.
actual Star Wars publications.
That was a great time, wasn't it?
Comics were great. Book was great. Bit sleazy, the book at times, but it was good. The game was also good. N64.
Yeah, it was.
It
Dash
was
Rendar was
Mr.
a good
Newbold
solo
linking everything together perfectly with the hashtag abuse of power, very appropriate for Shadows of the Empire and what was just suggested might be happening at Newbold Towers.
from these all Newbold.
Yeah. And last on the news front for this week, as we get close to the end of the show, Carrie Fisher's last movie, Wonderwell, is going to finally get a release this month, June 23rd, in the US. AMC Cinemas, I think, are going to be releasing it limited run, and then it's going to head to digital. It's taken a complicated 7-year journey to the film. A fantasy film featuring Carrie, which I think a lot of us will check out just purely because Carrie's in it. And deeply missed. I think that was one of the big misses I had from Celebration, was it's not quite the same without Carrie being there and causing all sorts of chaos in such a wonderful way as well.
Definitely. I'm so glad I got to meet her. At 5 or 6 months before she passed away, I saw her at Celebration in London. But yeah, so that'll be a nice quirky little thing to go and watch. Do we know what the premise of it is, Bri? I've not read too much.
I haven't looked too much into it, to be perfectly honest.
No.
To be
Sometimes you're
perfectly
best
honest,
off
it's
going
one of those
blind.
things that had kind of slipped your mind that it never saw release. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until Mr. Newbold picked it up and put it out on FanthaTracks.com that I was reminded about it, and I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
that was a project that kind of just disappeared off the radar a little bit. And it's nice to see it coming out.
Yeah, had she finished filming all her
She'd
elements
finished
to
it
it?
just weeks, literally just weeks
Right.
before she passed away.
Okay. So at least, there's no sort of digital sort of
No,
here's Carrie from the back
no.
sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. No, I'll definitely look that one up when it comes out.
Yeah. That is all the news this week, Paul. It's been a busy
Thank
week.
goodness.
A lot of news.
It
a
has
lot
been.
to mull over, and it's going to have a big impact on Star Wars in the future as well. It's going to be a landmark kind of news announcements of this week. And I completely ignored everything Indiana Jones this week. Obviously, Indiana Jones has been the big topic of the week with premiere in America and so on. And, so I completely side-skipped Indiana Jones for a week and just focused completely on Star Wars.
I am looking forward to Indy. I thought it was out next week. It's the week after, isn't it? But
June 28th.
Yeah.
And I think it gets its UK press premiere this week. So I think we'll start to see a huge amount of coverage in the UK. I'm hoping we'll see Harrison over here promoting it, hopefully, I think.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And my hopes from Indy's just a fun film that just lets you escape for a couple of hours. I don't want any complicated or in-depth story. I just want a fun Sunday afternoon adventure film, and I hope that's what it kind of delivers.
I just want it to be good. I think you're going to get the better deal than I am.
Yeah, Mr. Newbold confirming as well. Plenty from Fantha from Dial of Destiny this week. Fantha Tracks will be all over the coverage as usual. Check out FanthaTracks.com every day for your Star Wars news and indie news this week. And social media at FanthaTracks across all Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it.
We're there.
Yep. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Great fun having you back on the show. And Good Morning Tatooine will be back next Sunday for more Star Wars news. What it'll be, we don't know yet, but it'll be exciting, I'm sure, nonetheless. So, everybody,
cheers,
good night.
everyone.
Great, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at FanthaTracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow FanthaTracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.